Welcome to Real Foot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast from Discovery Park of America in Union City, Tennessee. Today's episode is brought to you by Jerry Ward Autoplex of Union City.
Thank you, Zach, and welcome everybody to Real Foot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast where we explore the history, the people, and the culture of our home here in West Tennessee. I'm your host, Scott Williams. Okay, Zach, before I introduce today's guest, what is something you discovered this week at Discovery Park of America?
So this week and the past couple months, the IT department and the grounds department have been setting up for the Let It Glow season here at Discovery Park. And I discovered from John Watkins that if you take all the strands of lights that we use for the Let It Glow light show, we have about 24 or 25 miles worth of lights that would stretch out. That is a crazy amount.
That is a crazy amount, and we are excited about Let It Glow this year. The drive-through, people are going to have a surprise when they come through the drive-through because the Titan missile, as you know, Zach, is being refurbished right now. It's being repainted, and so it's gone. Usually we decorate it off for Christmas, and it's really pretty. And so anyway, but there will be a surprise there as people come around the corner. So I'm not going to reveal it. They'll have to come here and check it out. No spoiler alerts here. Okay, our very special guest today is historian Jeff Sellers. He's the director of education at the Tennessee State Museum and the state capitol, and he's the publisher of a new book entitled Tennessee State Capitol. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Scott and Zach, it's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the time to get to spend with y'all this morning chatting about this book. I'm really excited about it. Love this podcast and happy that you're helping me sort of let your listeners know a little bit about the book and about our historic Tennessee State Capitol. I can't wait to chat about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you about this because it's a topic that, of course, is near and dear to my heart. I'm excited to learn more. You are returning. You are on episode 94 of Real Foot Forward. What episode are we on now, Zach? I'm trying to figure out how.
We're about to release 180, so this will probably be 184, 185.
Okay, so
wow.
So you were about halfway through. At that time, you were researching, searching for the grave of John Haywood, and you have been writing a lot about that and working on that. Folks can go back and listen to that episode, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. But is there an update on that before we tackle the new topic?
Yeah, actually, Scott, that project persists. It's still going on. It's sort of a side project. It's not related to the museum or Capitol or anything like that. It's just kind of a fun project that me and some other community folks here in Nashville got involved with. John Haywood was really the first historian of Tennessee. He's the first guy who really sits down and tries to write early history of our state. And so a lot of the names and people and places and events, really, he chronicled those to begin with. Anyway, his grave was never, when he died in 1826, his farm was sold away. And ultimately, over the next few decades, his grave became lost. His and his wife's grave, and so we're pretty certain we know about where it is in Nashville, where his old farm site was, but we can't quite pinpoint where it was. We've got archaeologists involved. All that said is we've used ground penetrating radar. All that said is that we've come up empty on several of those searches. And so we're kind of at an impasse right now. It's like if we can't find, we've got one more little section to look at through GPR. If we can't find it there, then it's kind of like, a needle in a haystack kind of moment there. So anyway, that's a nice side project. I always like to kind of overburden myself with lots of other things, I guess.
That sounds very familiar. So your new project, the book is called Tennessee State Capitol. I'm going to let people guess what it's about. You didn't hide the needle in the haystack there. Zach, have you ever been to the Tennessee State Capitol?
I have. I lived in Nashville for a few years, so I did make a trip there once.
It's really a beautiful building. We're very fortunate that it's still there. Back us up, Jeff, to your first experience at the Tennessee State Capitol. What your
Yeah.
early work was there like, and what impact it made on you.
Yeah, I have been at the State Museum and Capitol now um, for in September. I celebrated 19 years. Not that anyone's counting, but yeah, there's been 19 years of the Capitol, and my job as education director has involved managing all the tours of that building. So, gosh, I've been giving tours there since 2005. And I can still remember the first time I went into the building. It's a beautiful building. And, in my job, I get to travel all over the country. I get to see other state capitol buildings. And I just, Tennesseans, part of my message today and always is that we as Tennesseans have one of the most historic, one of the most beautiful, one of the most architecturally significant Capitol buildings in the entire country, and that's not exaggerating. That's not someone who gives the tours trying to play it up. It's very well known as that across the country, and so kind of my message with this book is just to let everyone know in throughout our state. Of what a treasure we have at the Tennessee State Capitol, and to share some of these great stories that happen there that really revolved around all Tennesseans, not just folks in Nashville or Middle Tennessee. But my main message with it is that this building belongs to all Tennesseans, and just like your listeners, it belongs to people in West Tennessee, East Tennessee, and all parts in between.
What were you doing when you got a job there, uh, managing the tours? Did you start managing right away, or did you start doing the tours? What was your earliest days like?
Yeah, that's great. I'm actually from Alabama. I'm an interloper. But I do come to it naturally. I love history. I came up here to Murfreesboro, MTSU, to do public history, and with the full intention of going back to Alabama to practice my craft. I met my wife in graduate school and the rest is history. All that said, I got a job because I had an education background at the State Museum in education, and part of that job was to give tours, obviously. And I was able to be a coordinator, which the coordinator does manage the tours. But in order to manage the tours, you got to give the tours. And among all of the tours of the State Museum, the State Capitol has always been my favorite. I love it. I love to see people surprised by it. It exceeds their expectations. And so, yeah, I remember going to it and said, wow, what a cool privilege it is. I remember walking into the House Chamber, which is the grandest room in the building, and say, "Wow, this is amazing. I get to share this with people because in the past I'd done Civil War battlefields, I'd been historic houses, those types of things. But this is one of only 50 buildings like it, and out of those 50 buildings, this is one of the best buildings. So it's a privilege.
Now, was there somebody who had been giving tours that you got to know early on when you first, who showed you beneath the basement and behind the secret doors behind the closet? And, was there somebody who had been there for a long time that
Yeah.
showed you the ropes?
Yeah, I always say, and I put it in the book in my acknowledgments, my capital mentor, so to speak, is Jim Hubler. And all you got to do is do a quick Google search of Jim Hubler, and you know that he is quite the historian of Tennessee and of particularly Nashville and the state capital. Jim was the senior curator of art and architecture at the museum when I started there. And so, he would give the tours. We called them the Gilligan's Island tour. I don't think you'll mind me sharing. It was the Gilligan's Island tour because it was literally the 3 hour tour. Um, but it was some of your older listeners will get that
Yeah, for sure.
reference. Um, but Jim was great. He knew all about the building, and I just soaked it up. Loved it. And giving the tours and training people on the tours, you sort of begin to get those, lesser known tales and mysteries and oddities that go on in a building where that has served as the civic capital, the political hub of the state for over 170 years. So, yeah, I would
And
say Jim is, and then of course other people along the way have always been so influential as well.
a 3 hour tour, that's a pretty substantial amount of time to keep people's attention, on an architecture and history tour. So, what would you say are the three highlights on the tour that most capture people's attention?
Yeah, the capital is very well, one, it's architecturally significant. Okay, it's Greek revival in nature, and for those that aren't schooled in architecture, Greek revival is really the style of architecture that is very has columns. It it doesn't have a dome. The Capitol building that most people are associate with is the U.S. Capitol building, which has a nice round dome on it. State Museum or State Capitol of Tennessee does not because it is Greek. Greek architecture really does not feature the dome that much. So I would say that's the exterior type of surprise for people. Inside the building, there's two rooms I think are the wow factors. I call them, the wow moments in the tour. One is the State House chamber, the House of Representatives. It's the largest room in the building. And it's the lower house in the legislative branch. But it has 16 massive columns that support the ceiling. Um, it has been the site of legislation since 1853, over 170 years. We, as Tennesseans, have been legislating from that floor with only a short break in the Civil War. And then the next
And
group.
isn't it true that originally wasn't the state capitol building or the state capitol not in Nashville?
Oh,
Wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah, it was
that's
out,
correct.
which is kind of interesting to me, that it was actually moved there. Where was it? I can't remember.
Well, it started, of course, the political center of Tennessee began in East Tennessee, in Knoxville. And so when Tennessee becomes a state in 1796, Knoxville is the Capitol building. And Blunt Mansion in Knoxville actually serves as the state capitol building during the earliest years. And that's in the book. I've got photographs of some of those earlier Capitol buildings. It floats to Nashville. The political center of the state sort of fluctuates over those early years. It also is in Murfreesboro, which, as you know, is the geographic center of the state. And then also for one day, it will be in Kingston, Tennessee, which is done to satisfy a treaty with the Cherokee Indians there. So it did float, but for the majority of those early years, it lands in Nashville.
Now, I do know that there's a group of people that are working hard to move the capitol to Memphis. So that'll be, no, I made that up. Sorry.
That would make it an easier drive for you, Scott, I think.
Right. Can you imagine? Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. Back to the building. I interrupted.
Oh no, that's fine. I love it. And then the last room that people love, and it's really the last room on the tour, is the old state library. Today, it's sort of it's called the Legislative Lounge. It's a beautiful architectural, more Gothic in style. The last room completed in the building, but has this beautiful spiral staircase. It spirals up 30 feet, and it's just ornate, very Victorian looking. Wonderful photographs of it in the Capitol book, as well as it's just beautiful. It's just a beautiful room and has a beautiful gas or chandelier that is original to the room. So
And so
Those
on
are
the
the
when you're
big wow
taking the
moments.
tour, do you walk around and you get to see everything? Like when you're touring the Library of Congress in DC, there's a lot of it that you don't really get to see. When you're touring the Tennessee State Capitol, you get to see everything.
Yeah, it really is. You do get access to the building. If you're walking around and they're not in session, you can pop your head into the Senate chamber. You can pop your head into the House, or the old Supreme Court. Um, Typically the governor's office is off limits, but they do have the door open so that you can see the reception room there. So but largely it is a working Capitol building. It is an open public building, that is accessible to Tennesseans.
Now, tell us a little bit about your book. Describe the book for folks who maybe have this is the first they're hearing of it. Tell us what the book entails.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Many people will be familiar with the publisher. The publisher is Arcadia Publishing Company, and you've probably seen at your local bookstore or at your pharmacy these photo history books of local communities, local groups. They're sort of the sepia tone books of Arcadia. It's called Historic Images of America. And it's a photographic history of our state capital. So in the book, there are 209 historic images of the Capitol and other things related to it, with captions. So it's not, you don't have to like slog through a long, scholarly type of history. It's meant to be very kind of a casual read and sort of an intriguing, quick look at the state capital's history. So yeah, it's a photographic history with captions and chapters that relate to that. So.
What is your favorite photo in the book?
Oh man, that's a question I've got to get ready for because I've had that a few times before. Um, I think probably one of my favorite. Well, the 1950s was an era in which of restoration. And much of the building was completely changed up in terms of replacing some of the old stonework. And so a lot of the columns were replaced on the Capitol building. So you see the building look a lot different than what it looks like to you and I today, with no Capitol or with no columns along the south or north or east or west. Even the top cupola was sort of taken off during that period. So you just get some weird looking pictures in that era. The most prominent photograph is probably the day in 1880, May of 1880. I can't remember the exact date, but it was the reveal of the Andrew Jackson's equestrian statue. And in this photograph, there's thousands of people on the hill waiting for this statue, which is still there today, to be unveiled. And on that, the people are on the roof. They're along the little small little corridor on the verandas. Very dangerous, precipitous positions that we would never allow people to be today. But it's really a cool photograph that shows a moment in time at the Capitol. So I'd say that's probably the favorite.
Was there, so when you're researching it, and we're going to take a break in a minute, and then we're going to ask about the process you went through to create the book. But was there a moment? Because I mean, you probably know more about the state capitol than just about anybody, in the state. Was there a moment where you came across something in your research where you were like, Eureka, this is something that nobody has seen before that I am so excited to show in the book?
Yeah, it's so true. I tried my best to find photographs that people were not familiar with. And so I'm very proud that there are a good deal of photos that most people probably have never seen. And one of those is a photograph that I found a few years ago that always I said if I ever get a chance to do this book, which I've been thinking about for a while, I'm going to make sure it gets in there. This one photograph comes from the photographer was set up, and it's probably from the 1890s. That photographer went to the very top of the tower, set up his camera looking south towards the south part of Nashville, and took a snapshot. It's the only one that I've ever seen like this, but it shows all of the giant mansions that once lined 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue and Martin Luther King Boulevard Jr. today. And it is completely amazing to see how much Nashville has changed over those years from this one photograph to today. So that's probably one of those images that I'm like, yes, this was something no one's seen, and we're going to put it in the book so that it's accessible for everybody.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, I've got some stuff I want to ask you about actually producing the book.
Great, sounds great.
Our friends at Jerry Ward Autoplex of Union City know that purchasing a car or truck is a big commitment. That's why they have the highest standards of service and the biggest selection to choose from. Don't see what you want? They'll even help you find it. Stop by 524 East Reelfoot Avenue in Union City or visit jerrywardautoplex.com.
I hope you're enjoying the Real Foot Forward podcast from Discovery Park of America. If you are, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our guest today is Jeff Sellers, who is the author and compiler, and I don't know what else what do you call yourself in this case? Are you the author?
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, I'm the guy who grooves on the history of the Capitol building and gets it out there. But yeah, they call me an author, although I'm a little bit feel like there's a little bit of imposter syndrome there. This is my
Oh,
first book.
I don't think so. Yeah, no, I think you're very much an author. So, of the new book on the Tennessee State Capitol. So, I'm very curious for the folks listening. I hear all the time people say, "I want to publish a book." So, you used Arcadia. Rewind us all the way back. You said that you'd had the idea. You'd been, you loved the state capitol. Um, how did the conversations happen with Arcadia? Did you shop the idea around with different people? Tell us about the how you came upon agreeing to proceed with a book.
Yeah, that's great. This has been in the back of my mind for years, probably 10 or more years. As I said earlier, I go around to lots of state capitals. I see photographic histories. I see these books that other state capitals, Georgia, Kentucky, they have these books
San
on their state capitol.
Antonio.
What's that?
San Antonio has a
Oh
cool
yeah,
state
they
capitol.
all have these books, and I'm like, okay, our capital is more historic. It's older, and there's not a book related to that. And I've seen all these wonderful photographs over the years of this building. So I said, it's just got to be done. But projects get busy, life is busy, and that sort of thing. Last summer, Arcadia reached out and said, "Hey, we'd like to do this." And it was like, okay, we've wanted to do this for a long time. I go to my director, Ashley Howell, and we sit down. I say, here we have this opportunity. Would you like to pursue it? And of course, to her credit, she was like, "Yes, let's go. Let's do it as a part of the state museum." And we have. So we signed a contract with Arcadia Publishing. I believe it's September of last year, which, as you know, is a very quick time for a book to kind of come together. It was a very aggressive timeline. We wanted to get it out before the Southern Festival of Books this year, which happened in October. And so we set to work, and Arcadia was really good to work with. They've got a pretty firm template of how they want to do things. So as long as you work within that template, it's pretty good. So I set to work researching different repositories to find these photographs. And I wanted to make it as diverse as possible. So reached out to several different archives collections.
So I'm sure you went over to our friends at the Tennessee State Library and Archives. Did they have some things there that you guys didn't have at the museum?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you really put these collections together, there's just a strong, great collection of photographs. I mean, Scott, I could have put two of these books together, three of these books together with
So do
all
I hear a volume two coming out next
I
year?
don't know. I don't know. There should be. There should be because there's great. I left great photographs out of this thing just because there wasn't enough room for them. But State Library and Archives, Tennessee State Library and Archives, wonderful repository, great people that work there,
The
professional.
Jamies. I work with the two,
Oh yeah. Jamie and Gordon and
yeah.
so great. All of the public services there are fantastic. Um, Also Metro Archives, Metro Nashville Archives are is a great
Mm.
repository. The capital being within Nashville for so many years, obviously you might. And then there's the Nashville Public Library special collections, which is a different thing than archives, which I learned. They also have a fantastic collection. They hold the Nashville Banner Archives, which is an old newspaper in Nashville that went out of business in the late 90s. But they hold all the photographs from that. So I was able to get a lot of those photos from news articles from that collection. And then of course our own collection at the State Museum is fantastic as well. So really I
For
picked the
people who
cream of
don't
the crop.
for people who don't do it, you just walk in there and go, "Hi, I want to see some pictures of the Capitol." How does it work?
Yeah, people should know if they want to do their own local histories, which I encourage people to do. What's your story you want to tell in your local community? Let Arcadia know. They want to find it out. Um, yeah, these are public collections. They belong to the public, so they're accessible to the public. There might be fees associated with having the archivists work with you to pull some of this stuff, but you can go to your libraries, your archives, and you could say, "Help me. This is a project I'm working on." That's what they're there to do. Is they're there to help. They want to promote history. So use them. These were public collections. I've used a few private collections, but mostly all public.
I do a little research here and there, and I find that the research libraries are my happy place. So,
Hmm.
it's quiet, it's peaceful, and I'm always ready for somebody to resist whatever I'm asking them to do. Not Zach, of course. Zach does everything I ask him to. But, out in the public, I'm always looking for somebody to have a problem with why they can't help me. And so
Yeah.
I have found that is not been the case, not even one time at the State Library and Archives, at your museum, at the Memphis Library, their fourth floor history room. You go and tell them this is what I'm trying to find, and they will literally spend all day with you trying to help you find what you need. So I
Yeah.
concur with what you're saying. It's absolutely an amazing experience, and the newspaper archives on microfilm are also um, fascinating. My problem is if I'm researching something, I get all caught up in everything else I'm reading, and I could literally spend a week, on a microfilm.
Absolutely. That is you start chasing these I call them you chasing these rabbits down their holes and you find yourself half an hour later it's like, "Wait a minute, what am I doing? This is
Right.
I've got a short amount of time to get this done." So you put a pin in it and you want to come back to those types of things. But yeah, it's a joy. And I recommend people emailing ahead of time, letting them know, hey, I'm coming. I'd love to. That helps them to prepare for your visit, or for them to say, hey, well, why don't you think about this? Because they know their collections, and you say, well, I'm studying this, and you may think, oh, well, I'd like to see whatever this collection is or whatever, but they can say, oh, well, we have this also. So just working real close with them and emailing them, and they are public servants and really, really are trying to be helpful.
So you get all these pictures together and you say, I've got these 100 pictures that I want to put in this book. So what happens next?
Woo. Yeah, there's a lot. At some point the fun part has to end, right? As you know, Scott, you know better than anyone. The fun of researching and finding and all of that has to end. And as my director Ashley says, it's pencils down and let's get to work. Although in this case it might be pencils up. You have to start writing. You have to start writing and putting some meat around these photographs. And so that's what I did. I spent all of the winter months last year just sort of taking a photograph and I tried to take a photograph and and write it like I was showing you. Like, hey, here's you want to look at this. Be sure to check that. Don't miss this little piece because this means something here. So you'll see a lot of it. I'll say, notice this, notice that. Because this has changed or this remains the same. You can visit it today. So it's really, I try to take the approach like I do my tours and not try to be overly scholarly or stuffy historian, but to say, I think this is cool. Let me share it with you with each of those photographs.
And this is very inside baseball, but in what format do you deliver all of this to Arcadia? Do you type it up in a Word document and email it to them?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It's very interesting. It was a learning process. So Arcadia, I had 209 images. That means I had to add 200, well, a little less than, no, I guess I had 209 captions. Um, when you finally submit those, they want the images submitted in a different format. They have a online software program that you upload your images to that program.
And they have
Each,
to be high, very high resolution images,
yeah,
not
yeah.
72 DPI.
No, no, they've got to be 300 DPI, which, the archivist can help you with that. They understand that. Um, 300 DPI. Each image is given a number, one through 209, and that's it. And then you have a Word document that is all captions, no images, just all captions, and each of those is the corresponding number to your image, so 1 through 209. Um, and they get that, and their editors they take over. There's a series of proofing that goes on, but what I had to do is I had to put the image and the caption right there together, so I knew what was going on. I made that document, then separated those two out and kind of did that separately as Arcadia wanted. But that was a little tricky, but it was understandable, and
Sure.
they do help you through that process.
And then you get a draft. Was there
hmm
anything when you were looking at the draft where you thought, egads, this has to
Yeah, that's
fit?
the scariest part, man. As you know, when you put something in a book, it there's a sense of permanence, and you want to make sure you get things right. So typos are big, dates are big. You want to do right by your subject, and you want to be very careful. You don't want to be so careful that it freezes you, that you can't move forward. So I had some of my friends and colleagues at the State Museum who were just experts, who were just so great, read the drafts. I read the drafts, but some point, as you know, you can't read your own drafts.
Right. You get blind to it.
That's right. You start to read what you think is there rather than what is there sometimes. So I had great colleagues, Joe Pagetta, our director of communications, Miranda Fraley Rhodes, one of our curators, did great job reading content for us. And just make sure fact checking, make sure things are right. But there is that proofing stage that is very important.
And you go through all that, and then there comes a point at which a box shows up at your home or office, and inside is the first books. What was that like, opening that box?
Oh wow. Yeah, the unboxing. Um yeah, that's kind of a funny story. I got a box from Arcadia when I thought the book was coming in. And I thought, oh my gosh, here are the first copies of it. And so I literally got our social media person together, and I said, you want to do this unboxing? Let's do this unboxing so you can put it on social media. She's like, yeah, let's go. And so we go out, and I cut the box open, and it was promotional postcards instead of. And so that was kind of an embarrassing moment. I said, "Well, here's some postcards," but nonetheless, about a week later, the box of books came in. We did an unboxing ceremony. You can check it out on our social media, the Tennessee State Museum's website or Facebook page. But yeah, it's so surreal when you get this thing and you go. It goes from being a digital thing to a tangible thing you can hold in your hands. I'm very proud of the people who helped with it. They know who they are, and it's a credit to the state capitol building, and it's something that it's hopefully it will be a resource for Tennesseans to come.
Oh, absolutely. I have ordered mine. It didn't come in time for me to be able to look at it before we talked, but I know it's incredible. I am curious, does it have an index in the back that has that's the worst. The index is my least favorite part of a book.
Yeah, we chose not to do the index because there's a certain level of pages and words, and if you do the index, that counts against your word count.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Something like
we
your book would have had 1,000 names at one
absolutely.
time. You'd
And
had to put
so
them all in there.
right, right. It just made it made if we chose more content
Good.
to put rather than the indices in there. So, and I'm fine with that. I feel like the organization of the book is such that if you have a question about something, you can find what chapter it should be in.
Now, I know you've got an event coming up December 5th at noon at the Tennessee State Museum there where you're going to do a lunch and learn. Is that online too, or is that just in person?
Yeah, that's going to be online. It'll be online. I do have a date, an important date change. It's going to
Okay.
be December 13th now.
December
We
13th.
sort of had a,
Okay. I got
a
it on my
conflicting
calendar.
change.
December
But
13th at noon.
at
And people
noon.
want to sign up, they can go to the Tennessee State Museum Facebook page or website, I'm assuming, to find the link to sign up.
Yep, yep, that's right. And it will be there and I'll sign books afterwards. So if any of your listeners are in the area, please come. It'd be a great, we think it'd be a good gift idea for the holiday season. So yeah, that's going to be a fun event. And then I'm doing some other speaking engagements. The best thing to do I'll make a plug if you want me to speak at an organization or I'm doing a lot of DAR and SAR, Sons of American Revolution, Daughters of American Revolution. If you have any of those organizations, I'm happy to come speak on the book as well. You can go to our museum website, tnmuseum.org, and look under our programs and events page for that.
Or podcasts. You're willing to do podcasts?
Yeah, I'm on podcasts. I love it. This is one of my favorite things to do is the podcast scene, and y'all do it as well, if not better than anybody.
Thank you. And then to buy the book, I could also go to Amazon, right? That's where I got mine.
That's right.
So
Yep.
you can just search your name and the name of the book, and boom, there it is. I can't wait to get mine. Final question. I'm coming to a meeting there at the museum at the Capitol, let's say. I'm going to stay at the Germantown Inn. Where should I eat? What's your favorite restaurant there?
Ooh.
It's a tourism question because I know you're in the museum business like me, but you're also in the tourism business like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
You
shall
know,
I eat lunch?
yeah, if you are coming to Nashville and you're coming to the Germantown, North Nashville area, um, for lunch, you can't beat, I think, the Germantown Cafe. It's been in Germantown since, for decades. So it's a staple there. Um, Uh, so that's a great lunch spot. You asked me to speak about food, Scott. We might be here a while now. It might be the whole time.
Maybe you
Um,
need to have a third episode on
that's
Real Quick
right.
Forwards.
But Monell's is the other one. Monell's is a great one as well in Germantown. And then I'm also uh, 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 There's a another little sweet treat place I think called the Cupcake Collection in Germantown, which is a fantastic cupcakes in that area as well. So it's a really cool spot. There's a lot. I will say, if you haven't been to this area in a while, it is a completely different area. As you might know, Nashville has changed quite a bit. But it is a whole neighborhood of great food. It's a cultural scene with the state capital, Bicentennial Mall, Farmers Market, and the Nashville Sound Stadium. There's great sports restaurants around. It's a really cool neighborhood now.
Yeah, and of course, Nashville's well known for the Grand Ole Opry and the Country Music Hall of Fame. Great tourism experiences, but you're absolutely right. That's my favorite area. It honestly could make a nice vacation, a long weekend. I mean, there's so much to see and do,
Yep.
especially if you're a history fan. So,
Yep.
highly recommend. Well, thank you so much. This has been as interesting. This has been more interesting than I knew it would be. So, thank you.
Well, Scott, let me tell you, I so appreciate the work that you and your team does out there in West Tennessee. You guys are professionals, and so great. You do such good work. I'm a rural guy. I grew up in a rural community. I love what you guys do for rural parts of Tennessee, especially out west. Thank you so much for honoring me to give me this time with you guys today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, when you're in Nashville, come look us up. I'm happy to share more about the history of our state, and with you and your listeners.
Fantastic. And thanks to all of you listeners who joined us today at Discovery Park of America. Our mission here is to inspire children and adults to see beyond. To plan an experience here for you and your family, visit discoveryparkofamerica.com.